In this video, we'll be talking about Screaming for Vengeance by Judas Priest. The album was released on July 12, 1982, and it's celebrating its 40th anniversary. We'll be talking about my personal experience with the band, and I'll give a little history behind it. After that, I'll talk about the songs and what I think of them, so let's get started. Back in 1982, heavy metal was starting to go mainstream. This was the first time that different forms of heavy metal started to emerge. Back in 1982, bands like Iron Maiden, Saxon, and Motley Crue all had albums out. Black Sabbath just released 2 albums with Ronnie James Dio. Those took metal to a whole new level. Metallica was just releasing their first demo around this time. The German metal scene was starting to emerge with Scorpions and Accept. Then there were bands like Def Leppard and Quiet Riot, which would later find success on MTV and the radio. Screaming for Vengeance was the follow-up to Point of Entry. That was an album that many metal fans felt was kind of like a commercial kind of album. But they did have lots of classic metal albums before that, like British Steel from 1980 and Stained Glass from 1978. Screaming for Vengeance was the album where they started to get noticed, and they took the heaviness up a notch after the slightly commercial direction of Point of Entry. In my personal experience, I got into Judas Priest a little later during my early metal listening years. The first album I ever listened to was Priest Alive. I remember asking a coworker to lend me the cassette so I could make a copy of it. This was the first album I had listened to from the band, but I didn't get into them until they released Painkiller from 1990. Then Halford left. I didn't really pay much attention to the band for a few more years, although I did enjoy his side project with the band Fight. So the first time I listened to this album was maybe 5 or 6 years ago when they started to get back into metal music. And at that time, I found a lot of older albums from Judas Priest. So the album cover is very iconic. It has this metal eagle flying over this yellow and red backdrop. This was designed by Doug Johnson. He would also design the next 3 albums as well. So as you can see, they have a similar style. They show like metallic elements over a colorful background and pretty cool album covers. This is one of his best albums, I would say. Probably many people would rank this in the top 5 out of all his albums. And it does have a classic lineup. It has Rob Halford, KK Downing, Glenn Tipton, Ian Hill, and Dave Holland. So let's talk about the songs now. First song is an instrumental called The Hellion. This is pretty much, a lot of people consider this to be like part of Electric Eye. It's just very iconic and really an intro to the next song, which is Electric Eye. One of the most popular songs on the album, just very iconic, has a great intro riff. Rob Halford uses his higher and lower range in the vocals. That really stands out. It's a very catchy song, has a memorable chorus. You got some chugging guitars in the verse section and a memorable lead guitar playing. The guitar solo is very iconic. It goes right into the breakdown section filled with lots of heavy guitar riffs. The song is about like government monitoring its civilians. That's like the whole idea behind the Electric Eye, being that this thing in the sky that's like always watching you. After that, Riding in the Wind. This is classic heavy metal. Has a pretty cool drum solo in the beginning. Has some heavy guitar riffs. It's a faster paced song. Rob Halford belts out some higher range vocals on this one. Has a lot of energy. There's a lot of guitar fills in it. The song is essentially about heavy metal. They make a lot of references to like space travel in the song's lyrics. Then Bloodstone, one of the more like underrated songs in the album. The intro reminds me a lot of like the early Van Halen, just like that type of guitar sound. The rest of the song is typical heavy metal, lots of power chords and riffs. Now Bloodstone, my interpretation is that it's kind of about violence in the world and how we should get away from it. Then Take These Chains. A little softer on this one. Reminded me of something more from their 70s albums. Has that clean guitar intro. As the song progresses, it kind of builds up to be like a typical Judas Priest song. Has a catchy chorus, the heavier Paracords. Another good song that's a little more accessible for non-metal fans. Rob Halford has this traditional rock vocal style, kind of as opposed to like the high-pitched screams from the other songs. It's a good song. It's a change of pace from the heavier stuff, and it shows off some more of their like classic rock roots. Then Pain and Pleasure. Another song has a classic rock intro. Another one reminded me of like that early Van Halen type of sound. The song's not very heavy, it has a nice groove to it. It's more of like this hard rock sound, some more traditional vocals. The song gets heavier during the chorus. The song is kind of catchy. The guitar tone really stands out. It's a slightly distorted tone, giving a classic 80s heavy metal feel. The lyrical content is really good. I kind of understand it to be like about like a toxic relationship that you don't want to leave. That's my understanding. Then the title track, Screaming for Vengeance. Really heavy intro riff, and then it goes into like a classic heavy metal sound. This is one of the heavier songs. The sound is a lot more raw. They use the sustained power chords in the chorus. And this is probably an early example of like speed metal where it does have all those elements. And I think the drumming is really good. Has a really great tone to it. They incorporate some really great examples of twin guitar melodies, and that's something this band has been known for. Then the next song is one of the popular ones called You Got Another Thing Coming. Has these chugging guitars intro paired with a power chord. This is very iconic type of song. Could please a fan of classic rock as well as metal. Just a very like accessible type of song. The guitar tone is very memorable. One of the songs I remember watching on Headbangers Ball when I was younger. Just a classic song. Then Fever. This one has a soft intro played with a clean guitar tone. Rob's vocals are sung in like a soft tone in the beginning. They start to bring in some heavier chords and the song progresses. A little more slower and melodic. When the chorus kicks in, gets a little heavier. They add in some power chords. The breakdown is cool. Has clean guitars playing arpeggios over the power chords. And Rob Halford just belts out some high-pitched vocals towards the end. The final song, Devil's Child, is pretty cool. Really great like bass guitar sound, you know, and you do hear those like gang vocals. And just the song has a very memorable chorus. It sticks in your head. Rob Halford lets out some higher range vocals on this one. You got a lot of guitar shredding and those like guitar squeals. And you start to hear like hints of that like synth guitar tone. They kind of use that a little more in the next few albums. So that's all I'm going to say about this. I would say it is one of my favorite albums by the band. Might not be my number one, but it's in my top 5. I still need to do a Judas Priest ranking video. I will do that one day, but I do have a few other classic album reviews by Judas Priest. Those will be like from the 70s. So I will put a link to those right next to me. Please remember, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.